all of you. Let your friends know this is a Facebook Live they want to view. The topic today is helping women succeed in years 1 through 15, in ministry, and much of what you will hear also applies to men. As many of you know, I did a post yesterday asking women what kinds of help do they believe that they need in years 1 through 5, 5 through 10, and 10 through 15. Thank you for weighing in, sisters. I want you to keep weighing in all week. The Women of Color Project is moving into its next phase and coming up with boot camps and sessions on everything from leadership and preaching to church administration and management. But I want to design for you what you want and need. So please weigh in. If you don't feel right about weighing in public, get to me on Messenger. Text me. Or you can send an anonymous or confidential, email to womenofcolorinministry@gmail.com. Do not be one of those women who say, I need something, or I'm in trouble, or I don't know what to do, and then you won't weigh in to help yourself. All week long, I need you to weigh in. I may put up a survey about this, but I can't help you unless you help me help you, okay? And brothers, you can even complete the surveys if you have a large number of women in your church and you've seen things that would be helpful to them. You should weigh into good afternoon, Antoinette, John Hill, Linda, good morning, or I keep saying good morning because that's when he usually starts. Good afternoon, Nazelle. Thank you for joining me for this important session of Facebook Live. Now, often when I do this session for women, I charge for it. I charge for it around the country for white churches, black churches, all kinds of churches. But I'm going to do this for free because I think it's so necessary. So I'm going to give a brief list because we'd be here for 3 or 4 days if I was too expansive. But I'm going to give a brief list. Lisa Jenkins, I see you. Cassandra Gould, I see you. Kevin, I see you. Thank you so much for joining me for this session, this important session of Facebook Live. Okay, what are things that women need to succeed in years 1 through 5 in ministry? And I know you all are going to give me feedback. There are going to be a lot of comments today. So let me see what you believe women need. Crystal, I see you. Cynthia, Linda, thank you all for joining me for this important session of Facebook Live. Number 1, women need networks. In years 1 through 5, you need networks. And these networks can include anything from a group of women preachers and men preachers at your church, networks at a school, networks in your denomination, networks you found through Facebook, networks you found because you went to a conference. As many networks as you can find in years 1 through 5, find them. No, you won't need to keep all of them throughout your ministry career, but you need as many as you can find. And you can join them and eat the meat and throw away the bones. But you need networks. You cannot be in Mississippi or Arkansas, Alabama, anywhere in the country by yourself and expect that you will do well in ministry. It will not happen. It just will not happen. You will make so many mistakes that you will doom yourself before you even get started. You need networks, not just a senior pastor. You need networks. They can be denominations, pastors groups in your city that accept women. And men, you know this, the same applies to you. And then you also, in addition to the networks, you need to begin early in years 1 through 5, building a cadre of sounding boards. Your senior pastor cannot be your only sounding board. That is ridiculous. You need to hear from people your own age. You need to hear from people who are older, who are middle age. You need to hear from people who've done well in ministry and from people who failed. You need sounding boards that you can respect. And again, as I said, you can eat the meat and throw away the bones. And don't just get sounding boards in ministry. One of the best things that I ever did was sounding boards in a variety of disciplines. I talked to men and women in business, men and women in law, men and women in counseling, and that helped me become a more well-rounded person in ministry. So you need networks and you need sounding boards. You need someone to tell you, as we used to say, if your slip is hanging. You need someone to tell you if you preached a bad sermon. You need someone to tell you if you're ready for seminary, if you're ready to do doctoral work, if you are ready to pastor. You need someone to tell you. Please, please, please get your network and get a sounding board. Hadari, I see you. Dr. Paris Smith, I see you. Thank all of you for joining me for this important session of Facebook Live. Things women, and men can use them too, need to succeed in years 1 through 15. Text people. Let them know on Facebook they are getting this information, for which there's usually a charge. I'm giving it out for free because it's that critical. So we've gone through, you need networks, you need sounding boards. Number 3, this is just still years 1 through 5. You need to determine your list of things you want to know. Determine your list of things you want to know. Stop stumbling around more than necessary. Yes, there will be some stumbling, but you don't need to do unnecessary stumbling. Determine the list of things you want to know, and each list is personal. So your list may concern, how should I dress in church? But even before I'm licensed and ordained, what kinds of seminaries should I consider? What book should I be reading if I can't go to seminary immediately, or if I am older, but I am in my first 5 years of ministry? Determine what things you want to know. Now, I know some of you are sitting there saying, Doc, I don't even know what I don't know. Yes, but you do know what you don't know as well. Okay? And some of the things will come as you go. But you need to start with a list. You need to start with a list of things that you don't know. Okay? And I remember when I was in law school, you had your course of study, so you knew what you had to learn to pass that bar. And then you took a bar course. But once you finished, if you were going to practice, you had to figure out where the courthouse was. You had to learn how to do a pleading and filing. Most law schools didn't teach you that. Okay? You may have learned it in a law office. But you need your list of things you do not know, and you can tick them off one by one as you learn them. Good afternoon. This is Dr. Martha Simmons on another session of Preaching and Preachers. Things women and men need to know in years 1 through 15 to succeed. So, we know you need networks, you need a sounding board, and you need a list to determine the things you want to know. Okay? For instance, in years 1 through 5, many women and men don't even know what to charge for a preaching engagement, a workshop, or a lecture. You can get this information, but you need to write it down and say, I need to know this. Yes, you are entitled to a decent honorarium. Don't let churches give you flowers and ties and necklaces, fake pearls. One used to be a big one. You are entitled to a reasonable financial honoraria, and you need to know what that amount is. You need to know what that amount is. And for women, right now you can go up on Women of Color in Ministry and see what you need to charge, and the new list up this summer, the 2018 list. But you can see the most current list that's on that website, okay? Number 4, what else do you need to know in years 1 through 5 to succeed in ministry? Women and men too. You need to know what minefields, booby traps, ditches, what to expect in years 1 through 5. Years 1 through 5, okay? The number one minefield, and you just need to know this if you don't already, there are men, sisters, who really do support women in ministry, and they will help you. You need to know that. Now, why did I say put this under minefields? Because there are also men who will never, ever, ever support women in ministry. Don't think about it. Don't worry about it. Don't fight with them. Don't argue with them. That's what they want you to do, and they will never support you in ministry. It is what it is. Accept it and move on. And if you are in a church and you have received a call to ministry, and you are with a pastor that does not believe in women ministry, get to step it. Get to step it. I can't say it any clearer. Get to step it. Get to stepping. Leave well. Leave without fanfare, but get to stepping. Because there are people whose minds you are never going to change, male and female. You're never going to change their minds, okay? But there are also men who will tell you that they believe in women in ministry, and there are women who will tell you that they believe in women in ministry and they will support you. But the reason this is under that minefields area is because there's strings attached. There are strings attached. If you didn't know, you are about to learn. There are strings attached. There are people who will license and ordain you and then ask you for your firstborn. Pretty much, okay? They will expect you to owe them forever. There are pastors who will let you, and this is male and females, come to their church and preach if you will sleep with them. There are bishops who will move your career along if you will sleep with them. There are people who will call you out and support you on Facebook if you will sleep with them, okay? Or there are others who will simply let you know, I expect to always preach for you. Whether they preach well or not, I expect you to always remember me. There are strings attached. And you need to decide, you can decide, sisters and brothers, what price you want to pay. You are an adult. You get to decide what price you want to pay. Whatever that is. And know that there are consequences both ways. I decided that I didn't care what you held over me. I was not sleeping with you. I was not sleeping with you. Now, you decide you want to sleep with somebody, that's between you, them, and God. Whatever you decide, that's your decision. Do not complain about it. Don't complain about it. Go on about your business. Go on about your business. I had a young man who was telling me that about a senior pastor who is a female who kept coming on to him and telling him what she could do for him if he slept with her. It was real. It happens every day. It just does. That's a minefield. Then another minefield that women don't expect, they are somehow shocked by, is that women in the church, I mean lay women now, will not support you in ministry. They will not. Even when the pastor puts you up, they won't support you. Get used to it. It's real. It's going to happen. Okay? It's going to happen. There are women who will not support you. They have been under patriarchy so long that they can't support a woman in what they believe is a man's role. Get used to it. It will continue to happen. It's the real world. Now, someone's saying, Doc, what do I do? What do I do to deal with these women who don't support me? Okay? First of all, understand that it's not, in most cases, it's not personal. It's not you. It's them. It's them. So stop feeling some kind of way. It is not you. It is them. That's number one. Number two, don't wear yourself out talking to people who are not interested in changing. And number three, and this is really important, stand in your calling. Stop flinching. Stop flinching. Stop letting women in the church and men call you by your first name and then call all of the male clergy Reverend so-and-so or Minister so-and-so. Stop flinching. Yes, you have to learn how to stand your ground in years 1 through 5. Stop flinching. Now, you can call your girlfriend or people like me later, but you got to stop flinching. And even if you're shaking in your boots, do not let them see you sweat. Stand your ground. If you're going to be a leader, that's one of the things you have to figure out in years 1 through 5. Stand your ground. I don't care if they're deacons. I don't care if they're other pastors. Stand your ground. But expect it. And then, as I said, there's another minefield. And sisters and brothers know this one well. Other women will compete against you in ministry. Okay? Let that set in for a minute. It's unfortunate, but it's true. Other women will compete against you in ministry. You will have 5, 6 women on a ministry team, and don't worry, the brothers do this too, okay? But I'm talking about women today. They will compete with you for crumbs. For crumbs. None of you all are preaching anywhere. None of you all are making any money, and you're fighting over crumbs because you've not learned that the thing to do is build a bigger pie. Build a bigger pie. Your job is not to point out to the senior minister another sister's weaknesses so that you can appear stronger. Your job is to help the other women who are weaker. And then if you become a senior pastor, there are other senior women who will not let you preach. That's right. They'll invite men before they will invite women. And it's in that nasty spirit of competition. I refuse to compete with anyone in ministry around anything. Whatever you have, that's yours. Whatever you have, whatever I have is mine. And I learned this early in ministry. There is no need for you to compete with anyone, because if you really knew how they got to where they got to, you would not want their journey in many instances. I often tell young women, when I meet young women, they're like, Doc, how can I write books like you? How can I do etc.? And then I tell them the hard work. Okay? So you don't have to compete with anybody. Just put your work in and know that even when other women bring that competitive spirit, and men too, to the table, you don't have to buy into it. You don't have to make it worse. That's a decision you can make. And most often, again, it's not about you personally. It's about their insecurities. And there's so little room, women believe, out there, that they're struggling and grinding and pulling and clawing for every step they can get. They will throw you under the bus. They will lie on you. They will put out rumors. They will speculate. But it's really not about you. It's about them. It's about them. And you need to get clear on that. You need to get clear on that. This is Dr. Martha Simmons with an important session of Facebook Live. What women need to succeed in years 1 through 15. Right now we're discussing years 1 through 5. Things that women, and in many cases men, need to know if you're going to succeed. Okay? Another thing, and I don't know why this shocks people, but it does. Women, you need to know that your denomination, and throughout denominations, they can all be inconsistent. They can be inconsistent regarding whether or not women can preach, do ministry in churches. Some Baptist churches welcome women. It's not an issue. Others do not. Okay? Some AME women have good mentors and they do well going through the system. Other women are crushed in the system because of things that are done by those who lead them. And that goes for CMEs, Church of God in Christ. Whatever your faith community, there are differences among churches and denominational leaders, okay? And you need to get ready for that. And not say, well, so-and-so's pastor or so-and-so's bishop or so-and-so's superintendent. Expect that there will be differences. There will be differences. And it's your job to decide what is best for you and what God has called you to do. But you need to know that there will be differences, okay? Especially if you are in predominantly white denominations. I'm UCC. There are denominations that will ask women to take on multicultural churches. And they won't teach you anything about what that means, but they expect you to do it. We know that many of the denominations, AME, CME, United Methodist, and others, give women what are cemetery churches. Cemetery, that's right. They send you to churches that are just about dead, and they don't care if you die there. And if you raise those churches, often your reward is another cemetery church. I'm just telling you the real truth. You need to know these things as early as possible. What else do you need in years 1 through 5? There's one other significant thing. You need in years 1 through 5 to begin developing lifelong habits in ministry. I don't care if you've only got 10 more years to do it. You started as a second career. Start developing in years 1 through 5 those habits you want to keep throughout ministry. Your meditative time. Learn how to meditate. Take some time away for yourself. I don't care if you got kids, a school, a second job. Get your meditative time in regularly. Whatever you call it, however you do it. However you do it, okay? And then, in years 1 through 5, start learning administrative lessons. If you want to be a senior pastor, if you want to work administratively in a church, if you want to get to the denominational level as an officer, start in years 1 through 5 learning about church administration. This one boggles my mind. Men don't do it and women don't do it. Nobody knows anything about administration. At least start reading the books. And instead of going to all of the flashy name conferences, for God's sake, go to a conference that will teach you how to design a budget and read a budget. Go to a conference that will teach you how to raise money for real and to do so in a legitimate way that does not harm a congregation. Go to places where you can learn about administration. You need to do that in your first 5 years. You need to do it. You need to do that as quickly as possible. And so you have that under your belt. And you can do it across time. There's so much material now online. You need to understand how to administratively help a church with a social media process. It may be your church. You need to learn the administrative structures of your denomination. What do you have to have ready? If you're in a church that does assessments, that does conferences, your annual gatherings, how do they operate administratively? You need to learn that in your first 5 years when you are probably not pastoring. Okay? Write it down and hold on to that information. So you need a meditative time. You need to learn about administration in your first 5 years. It almost should go without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. For God's sake, work on your preaching. And do not tell yourself, Doc, I'm not interested in being a senior pastor. I'm not interested in leading a church. You don't have to lead a church to be a good preacher. It should be a part of your basic ministry skill set. Your basic ministry skill set. And I'll tell you this, and no one else will. I don't care how gifted you are, if your work is in the church and church-related entities and or in the academy. If you want to do better, learn how to preach. Learn how to preach. In years 1 through 5, read every book, watch the videos, talk to people. Study a variety of types of preaching. In years 1 through 5, learn how to preach. Learn how to preach. Don't let anybody fool you. It will help you in ministry sooner or later. Okay? And the other thing that you need to do in years 1 through 5 in ministry, begin saving for retirement. I don't care if you are 21 or 51. Well, if you're 51, hopefully you're adding to retirement. You may need a second job. Whatever you need to do in years 1 through 5, concentrate on your retirement. One of the things that I'm going to do as part of this program that I'm developing to help women is to bring in financial experts to talk to women about everything from taxes for clergy who are not senior pastors, to how you can start to build a financial fund, to how you can start to understand stock. You got to start. And this is only in years 1 through 5. And this is for men and women. Men and women. You got to start. I don't care if you're doing $50 a month in the MMBB, Ministers Missionaries Benefits Board. You can put money in. Even if you are not a senior pastor, start it early. Start it early and keep it up. Now, what do women need in years 6 through 10? In years 6 through 10 in ministry to succeed. Number 1, you need a sponsor. Hear me loudly and clearly. You need a sponsor. Get on, tell your friends. Come join us on Facebook Live for this important discussion on what women need in ministry in years 1 through 15. In years 6 through 10, you need a sponsor. You need a sponsor. What in the world do I mean by a sponsor? You need someone who will call your name to other people in public on Facebook with no strings attached. They just want to see you succeed. They just want to see you thrive. And they will say, when the preacher calls them, consider so-and-so. I do this all the time. When people call me for preaching, for workshops, for lecture, call somebody else's name. You better have someone who can call your name. If you're hanging around people who don't know anybody, you need to broaden your cadre of friends and acquaintances. You need people who can call your name, whether you are a male or a female. Ministry is difficult. It is difficult to do. Whether you are in the academy, you're in the church, you're working in a non-profit, you need people who can call your name, and when they call your name, you get a good result. If they send a reference, you get a good result. People pay attention. People pay attention. Okay? You need in years 6 through 10. It's good to have all the way through, but you most likely won't. Okay? But in years 6 through 10, it becomes almost critical. You need someone, and I said a sponsor with no strings attached. You need people who will call your name. Okay? Also, in years 6 through 10, I'm going to go back to this administrative thing again. You need to really get strong in understanding administration. I don't care what your role is. Even if you are in the academy, you better understand whether they're going, how the tenure process works. That's an administrative understanding. Whether you're going to get a long-term contract, what you have to teach, how much you have to write. But if you are working in a church, you want to be an executive pastor, or you are an executive pastor, for God's sake, get an understanding of administration, especially if you are in a small church. You really do have to understand how to put systems together. There are workshops, there are books, there's so much help out there, and as I said, in addition to the financial planning, this is one I want to do for women as well. You've got to be a strong administrator. There's so many women and men out there who are very, very good preachers, but they either cannot get a church or their church is failing because they have no administrative understanding. None. They don't know how to project financially 5 years into the future. Can't do it. They don't understand what it means to project. They can give you their theme. They don't know how to assess what are real assets and liabilities of that church. All of that is an administrative understanding, and you need it critically in years 6 through 10. Okay? What else do you need in years 6 through 10? Women, and in many cases men, okay? You need to learn pastoral agency. Write that down. Pastoral agency. In other words, you need to be in a job, take a job that allows you to take responsibility for your own growth unimpeded. Now, part of how to get that is to be an administrator who knows how to deal with difficult people at your church or wherever your workplace is. But you need pastoral agency. You will not do well in ministry if you are at a church or elsewhere and you can't even make a decision about when to change the keys. Now, there are times, over time, when you can get pastoral agencies in some cases. But when in years 6 through 10, I'm talking years 6 through 10 now, when you are called to a church and after your first 2 years of being there, that church allows you no pastoral agency, you need to get to looking for another church if you do not know how to gain that pastoral agency. You've got to be able to work unimpeded and make your own decisions and be a responsible person in ministry. Another thing that impedes women in ministry in years 6 through 10 not having pastoral agency is that too many women are afraid of their own freaking shadows. Yes, I said it and I meant it. And men too. Okay? You are afraid that people won't like you. You are afraid that they will blackball you. You are afraid that you won't get preaching engagements. You are afraid that you will get put out. And all of that could happen. But I tell you what, if you never learn how to stand in your calling, which is what pastoral agency really is, things will not work anyway. You will not be the person in ministry you wanted to be. You will not do what you wanted to do. You've got to work on pastoral agency. And if you don't have any, you don't know what that means, you're not sure, you need to start to connect with a cadre of people who can help you to understand what it means to have pastoral agency, especially in years 6 through 10. In years 6 through 10, women nor men, Are you still fighting with anyone about your calling? You're not still fighting with anyone about whether they're going to ordain you if you've been faithful in a ministry. Use your pastoral agency and move forward, okay? What else do you need to be able to do in years 6 through 10? You need to know how to retrain women who do not believe in female leadership. That's right. You need to know how to retrain them. Patriarchy is deep in the minds of so many women in the church because all they know is a man as the preacher. You need to start to unteach. How do you do that? You bring in men, okay, who will support you in helping women unlearn it. Then you bring in other women. You preach about it, you teach about it, but most importantly, you use your pastoral agency to say, I am standing in ministry, I'm standing where I'm standing, I shall not be moved. And women will be moved by your example. But some of it will take teaching and preaching because it is so embedded, okay? But that just goes with the territory. So for all of you women pastors who think you're going to become a pastor and the women in the church are just going to support you because they're women too, no, it will never work out just that way. Yes, there'll be some sisters who support you, but there will be many students many women rather, who can't see it. So don't act like you're shocked and surprised. Get ready for it. Get ready for it, okay? What else do you need to do in years 6 through 10? You need to know how to learn how to develop a budget and stay within a budget, especially if you are leading a small church or a small non-profit. You need to really learn budget management work. You really need to do it. You may have to go to school for it. edX, E as in Edward, D as in David, X as in X-ray. I believe they still have great classes. They are all free. They're online, taught by some of the best minds in the country on budgeting and budget managing. You've got to know that in years 6 through 10 if you're working in a ministry. I don't care if you're leading a women's group or a youth group. You're the executive pastor, senior pastor. You need to understand budget management. And you never know. I know some of you women are saying, I'm never going to be a senior pastor. You don't know. So why not go ahead and put it in your arsenal? It won't hurt you and it can help you, okay? What's the next thing you need in years 6 through 10, especially if you are pastoring or working in an area of a church where it's your job to grow? You need to learn how to grow people. How to grow people, okay? You need to learn how to grow people. What do I mean by that? Of course, the automatic one is I need to learn how to grow a church. Well, not everyone is going to be a senior pastor, so you may be working with the young adults at the church, the children's ministry. You need to learn how do you grow people. If you grow people, your numbers of people will automatically increase. You've got to learn how to grow people. Don't just get a position and grow yourself and you start with 10 people and end with 10 people 5 years later. That is ridiculous. And somebody's out there saying, Doc, I tried everything. I put out flyers. I've done social media. I preach hard, but my church won't grow. My ministry won't grow. Then you haven't done everything. You have not done everything. If you learn how to grow people, I promise you that your ministry will grow. Now, you may not, your ministry may grow 50, 100 more people, some 500, some 1,000. But you will see growth because the people are growing. Okay? And when people have things going on, They tell their friends. They tell their families. Okay? Word of mouth still works along with good social media. Okay? And yes, you do need good social media to help your church grow. People should not have to search all over Siberia to find you on the web with some grainy picture and no service times and a huge picture of the senior pastor. It's 2018. Let's do better than that. Okay? You need decent social media. You definitely need decent social media, and you need to learn how to grow people. What do I mean by grow people? Grow people in the area of discipleship. Help people to be the best that they can be. Not just to be someone who comes to church and pays their money, but help them to develop their agency. Help them to learn how to serve communities. Help them learn how to be better parents, read their Bible, and not just do a Bible study because you do a Bible study. Grow people, grow communities, and your churches will grow, your ministries will grow, your nonprofits will grow. But it's all about the people. And if you think you've done everything that you can to grow, okay, you haven't. You haven't. You can grow a church. You can grow a ministry. Keep working on that. The last thing, and like I said, I could be on here 3 or 4 hours if I gave you a complete list. But the last other big thing that all women clergy need to know how to do in years 6 through 10 of ministry is learn how to raise money. Learn how to raise money. It doesn't matter if you are the senior pastor or not. That doesn't matter. Learn how to raise money. It could be a nonprofit. You could be in the academy and you want to do a major project and you need to submit a grant to get your money. To do that project, learn how to raise money. Learn how to raise it in churches. Learn how to raise it in communities. And you all know that there are 1,000,001 fundraising how-to websites, grant websites. You gotta do it, and you gotta do it at least in years 6 through 10, if not years 1 through 5. You really, you need to know how to raise money. I remember early on when I started in ministry that watching preachers raise money, raise an offering during a sermon. And one service I watched Dr. Ernestine Reeves raise an offering. And it changed my life around how you raise an offering in a church. And then I took that and I transferred it. I took some classes in grant writing. And so I learned how to raise money in a variety of ways for a variety of needs. Sisters and brothers, you need to do the same thing. Do not expect that your church will survive on just tithes and offering. You need to know how to raise money and how to raise it in addition to tithes and offering. Most people don't even know how to get their folk to tithe. Okay, they got 5% of a church tithing instead of at least the 20%, which is where you have to get to, at least 20%, so that you can build a great budget that you can count on because you got that 20%. You've got to learn how to raise money. As I said, there are a variety of resources out there. I may just have to do a whole thing one day on just raising money. I know, we're afraid to ask people for money, and we're afraid people are going to say we're pimping the church. No. You have to keep the lights on, and you have to eat. Okay? So you need to learn how to raise money. Learn it early and learn it well. Whether you are a senior pastor, working in a nonprofit, in the academy, working with a youth group, starting your own business, you may need to raise capital, for a business. Learn how to raise money. Okay. Now, we're down to the last part. last part. What do women need to succeed in years 11 through 15? We've done 1 through 5, 6 through 10, 11 through 15. What do women need to succeed in ministry in years 11 through 15? Number 1, you need to stop right after you hit year 10 and do a personal assessment, okay? Especially if you started in ministry early in your 20s or 30s. Do an assessment and ask yourself, what do you still not know? And be honest, it's just you and God talking. What do you still not know? And then prioritize, what do you need to know most urgently? You need to write it down. Don't just think about it and sit back and get mad saying woulda, coulda, shoulda. Write down your list of things that you still need to know. Years 1 through 10, maybe you didn't learn much at all. Your pastor didn't teach you much. You didn't go to seminary. You were in a backwards location where people didn't help people in ministry. All of that can be the case, but by the time you hit year 11, it is all on you. You may need to leave that location that's so backwards. It is all on you. And you need to ask yourself, what don't I know? Even though I've been out here a minute, what don't I know and what do I need to do about it? Okay? Then in years 11 through 15, you need to write down, send a letter to yourself. What do I want to do for the rest of my ministry life? That's right. Start planning early. I don't care if you hit years 11 through 15 and you're in your 40s. Start the letter there so that you can start to put together a plan for what you want to do when you are 65 and 75. Many of you are going to live to be in good health at 85. Write it down. What do I want to do? You may need to start a whole nother career. You don't want to try to start it when you're 65. You can enter it, but not start it. Start your studying early. If you want to be a professor, get that training early. If you want to move to a quieter place, a whole different kind of setup, you need money to move and to live differently. Okay? Start to ask yourself in years 11 through 15, what do I want to do for the rest of my ministry life? This applies to women and men too. Too many of us are waiting until we are 50 and 60 and saying, what's next for me? You can't do it. You need to ask the question early. You need to ask the question early. You need to look at your finances earlier. You have to start to ask these critical questions early, okay? And of course, in the years 11 through 15, you really need to start to take a serious look at your money. You may already be in debt from seminary, but you need to start to figure out ways to save more money. It may be a second job. You may need to raise the prices of what you charge for preaching and workshops and things like that. But you need to figure out ways to increase your income so that when you hit retirement, you have saved sufficiently. And for God's sake, make sure that you are putting some money in a fund through your denomination or some denomination that gives you a decent retirement. A decent return on your money. Okay? And in your retirement, hopefully you can do some things that you love. You can plan to do something that you love. It may not be a perfect job, but it is one that you won't mind getting up for every day. Okay? Finally, in years 11 through 15, you need to start thinking about legacy building. It's not too early to start to ask yourself, what do you want to leave on the planet for others in ministry? Okay? What do you want to leave for others? Is it a book? Is it a church that's functioning well? Have you taught others how to love? Have you helped others because you provided therapy, you were a counselor? And how can you increase that? Brothers and sisters, we've got to stop doing ministry just for ourselves. That's why so many of the things that the black church is suffering from, so many things that we haven't figured out how to do in all of the time that we've had the black church, is because we don't do any legacy building. We do one man and one woman shows. And when we're gone, we hope they give us a good funeral and we're just gone. That is selfish. It is ridiculous. It's almost a scandal to call yourself a black person in ministry or in the academy if you're not leaving something for somebody else. Maybe you shouldn't be in ministry. Ministry at its core is about building others. So certainly building up others for Christ. So certainly as a part of your legacy building. So if you've been in ministry 10 years, reach back and help someone who's been there 1 year and start to do some legacy building. Know what you want to do with your sermons. Who do you want to leave them to? Do you want to put them in a book? Do you want to start a foundation? Do your legacy building thinking in years 11 through 15. Don't just think about yourself and building a bigger barn as the rich man said when asked, what are you going to do? You got all this money, all this land. He said, I'm going to tear this down and I'm going to just build me something bigger. Don't end your time in ministry for only being known for building a big building. That's a small legacy. At least be known for having built up people. People. Whether it's the ministers in your church that you trained, kids in your community. Maybe you helped build a neighborhood park. You started a foundation for the homeless. For God's sake, don't do ministry and not do legacy building. Do it as long as you can. Do as much as you can. And be intentional. Don't just do it off to the side, haphazardly. Be intentional about legacy building. I do the many things that I do because I am trying to leave a legacy for others in ministry. That's why I write. That's why I teach. That's why I do Facebook Live. That's why I mentor men. That's why I mentor women. That's why I do it. Because I learned early the legacy that had not been given to me. And I needed it so badly. And so I went to digging in books to read about what other preachers had done. And thank God there were a few books to read. Brothers and sisters especially, begin. If you are in years 11 through 15, and you can start to help others at any time. But get serious about legacy building, not just a church building. In years 11 through 15. God bless you. We're going to stop it right there. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you all for joining me. I know most of you are worn out from just getting through Holy Week and certainly services from yesterday. Thank you for joining me. I hope this has been helpful. And last but not least, if it's been helpful, share the video. Share the video. It won't cost you anything. It will help a young preacher. It will help someone who is dejected. It will help someone who is confused and does not know how to move forward. It will help them. Share the video. And one last thing, as I said, Sisters, please, 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 hit me up on Facebook, on Messenger, text and email, and let me know what you want to see in ministry for you. This is just for you in years 1 through 15. What if you're in your first through 15 years? I'm building a program for you. It has nothing to do with age. It has to do with time in ministry. Okay? It has to do with time. It has to do with time in ministry. Sorry about that. Didn't turn that phone off. God bless. Have a great week. I'll see you next week at 11:45 a.m. I hope, if Facebook will cooperate, for another session of Preaching and Preachers on Facebook Live. Have a great week.